Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Starfy Origins. In the last part we started off the post-game and took care of the first two levels, and now it's time for us to head back to level 3, the Stranded Whale. What do you got to say about this, Mo? It looks like some treasure somehow made its way inside the whale. I guess we better get in there and ask around to see what's going on. Moon, the crab family, the antibodies, all those strange guys. So, once you're ready, get going. No loafing around. Yeah, every single treasure chest in this particular level is inside the whale, which means you have to go through this entire section every time you start off the level, which can get annoying after the first 3. Whenever I come here, the whale's always sleeping. Think you could use your spin to wake her up? It should be no trouble for someone thick-headed like yourself. Huh? What's wrong, Stuff? No way, not again. Get used to seeing this animation. You have to see it as many times as there are treasure chests in this level. Thankfully, since we're still technically in the early game, there's not a lot of treasure chests in this level. I think this is the first level with 4 off the top of my head. So we're not seeing it 6 times, but still, 4 times is a lot. The first route for a treasure chest is very early on in the autoscroller section at the very start of the interior of the whale, and it's a catfish boat section once again. The catfish boat sections on post-game get a little more complicated because they like to play a few more traps with the enemies, like buzzsaw cats that will run towards you, or the occasional shark fish that will jump out at the water at the last second to surprise you. As long as you stay towards like the left third of the screen if you can, you're not in too much danger, but be careful all the same. Now, if memory serves, in the last part I said I would take a look at the future parts and see if I could edit them down to be a little shorter because this LP was over half post-game. I did do that. Unfortunately, with how long some of the new level design sections are, on top of having to redo boss fights with new patterns, this LP is still only 16 parts long, so we only got a single part removed in terms of the part count, but I at least also paced the rest of it a little better, so we're getting through more of a level at a time than we were before, because I think the way it was prior, we were only basically doing 1 level per video, and we're still doing that for the most part, but we enter a second level more often than not before the end of a video. I'm gonna take a look at the later parts after this to see if I can get a little more out, but I feel like 16 parts is where this LP is gonna stick throughout the rest of it. This is a particularly annoying portion of level design. You have to really worm your way up into these vertical portions of current in a way that's kind of uncomfortable. A way I've found that does work in some cases like that is that it's easy to bounce yourself off the floor to bounce upwards into a tunnel like that. But it's not always the most reliable when it's only 1 tile wide, so be careful all the same. And now we got a key. Kind of disappointing, you actually can't, like, go into the treasure menu and highlight these treasures to get, like, a close-up of their sprite or, like, a little line of dialogue about them from Mo. They're just pictures you get to look at. It'd be a minor thing, but it'd be nice, but at the same time, I'm not sure what the cartridge size max was on GBA. If I looked this up in a previous LP, I have since forgotten it, so I feel like maybe they may have been pushing their limits at the time. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna go do some research on that. Be right back. Okay, and I'm back. So, Game Boy Advance cartridge data sizes ranged from cart to cart, but the average sizes were 4 to 32 megabytes. I assume the actual divisions were like 4, 8, 12, 16, and then up to 32 directly from there. Though there were some 64 megabyte packs, but those were mostly used for the GBA video cards, like the ones that had Pokemon episodes, some movies, Sonic X episodes, all that. Starfy 1 itself is an 8 megabyte ROM. I'm going to assume the fan translation didn't do a lot to increase or decrease its size on the whole, whereas Starfy 2 and 3 are 16 megabytes, so they're probably pushing the size limit for what Starfy 1 could do on the cheaper, lower capacity carts, just for a first entry. I assume they were a little hesitant to go much larger than that. Honestly, I need to do a lot more research into like developer interviews from stuff at the time on the cartridge-based consoles and handhelds, just to see what it was like to develop for them, because I like reading about that kind of stuff. It's always interesting seeing what shortcuts they use to get around certain loopholes and all that, and what the consoles themselves couldn't do, so they had to figure out ways around that. Like, I know one story is that, if memory serves, the Mecha Dragon in Mega Man 2, I think only the head of that is a sprite. The rest of it is a background element, which is why it's a complete black background during that particular boss fight. Otherwise, like, I think I went back into it in my Cyber Shinobi LP years back. But, like, between the Master System and the NES, one of them could flip character sprites, the other could flip background tiles, like vertically and horizontally, but the opposite system could not do the other thing, which is why if you look into the sprite files for games on those, sometimes you'll see, oh, well, here's every corner tile for a room on this one system, but here's a sprite for the character facing all 4 directions instead of just 2 directions, and then flip it. Game design is incredibly interesting to me, and the shortcuts that you have to take for some parts of it. And it makes me still somewhat wish I had actually, like, gone to college for that all the way through instead of leaving that for graphic design about a year in. But at the same time, I much prefer what I went into, even though I haven't done a lot with that career-wise because the jobs for that are kind of hard to find at the moment for reasons because creative stuff's kind of a hellscape. Either way, in the room where we first encountered the, I guess it's meant to be some sort of intestinal lining type currents on our first trip through the Stranded Whale, there is a room that leads to this room, where it's an autoscroller that leads us to our next treasure chest. Again, I do like that the treasure chests are largely in completely original rooms, or at least in portions of rooms that you couldn't access prior, so you're still seeing new stuff along the way. Because I do think there's a worse version of these backtracks in the various web of possible realities where the sealed blocks don't lead to doors that lead you to new areas. The sealed blocks themselves just block the treasure chests in rooms you've already been to, which, yes, that means it would probably be a shorter backtrack to the stages because you just have to get back to where the sealed blocks are, and there's a chest behind those that you could see earlier in the game. But there's less interesting new things along the way, so while it's a shorter post-game, it's ultimately a less interesting one. For now, time for us to do the higher difficulties of Shuffle Shades. My, don't you look like quite the weak one. In a jam, then perhaps give my challenge a try. I've got a bunch of prizes lined up, so let's go. So, what changes as the difficulties increase in Shuffle Shades is pretty much as we've seen already in the Seahorse Catch, what the difficulties tend to change. The projectiles increase, the amount of them increase, or just the speed at which they bounce around increases. Normal goes by pretty quickly as long as you keep an eye on where those sunglasses first go. Not too shabby, but just wait till I take things seriously. Hey, I got a story for you. If above a door you see a mark that looks like a star, that's a sign that any treasure in there has already been taken. So if you pay attention, your quest will be a lot easier. Okay, have some pearls. Yeah, I don't think I even mentioned that last time. Whenever you've been down a pathway and gotten the treasure chest there, it does mark that door with a star. There are a couple of cases in like 2 levels though where you still want to go in a room with a star, either for the star pearls to begin with in there, or because it technically has a split path that leads to a different treasure chest in some form. It's mostly the Undersea Temple where that happens from memory though. Another way Shuffle Shades gets harder on its harder difficulties is they actually rotate the cans around more often before they start bouncing around, so you have to kind of keep track of which one it is. Amazing. Alright then, I'm gonna lead you to a secret room. There's a rare creature in there that you may be able to add to your picture book. Oh, and take these 2. Yeah, the picture book's actually what the encyclopedia is called. I just call it the encyclopedia or bestiary because it's more directly what that is. And here we got that green thing. It's dead, but more importantly, we got more pearls. Now, something I'm trying to remember is the last time I played the 5th game, the one that we first got over here on the DS, I want to say that game was a little more level-to-level based in its level design, so the levels were a little more, here's this one specific idea and what we can do with it, on top of having more things to do throughout it, and also more mechanics, because, you know, 5 games in, of course, there's going to be a little more to do. And I want to say for what Starfy does mechanically from base, I think I do prefer that than the longer levels that have a lot of smaller sections to them. Because I want to say the 5th game had proper worlds with individual levels within that aesthetic kind of deal going on, kind of like what Mario games tend to do and all that. Though at the same time, I do like the post-game level exploration in concept, even though the amount of visits we need to do here is a little, not ridiculous, but on the high side at the least. I think instead of 45 treasures, they could have done well with even like 20, so like every level has 3 or 4 at most that you can go grab. Because then the level design gets completely redefined by your later game abilities coming in earlier, but also there's more routes you can explore in later levels like that. For now, though, we're over back where we got our upgraded Star Spin the first time around. Because now that we have the Ultra Star Spin, we can resist the currents around here even better and make our way back to the start of the area when we first got the upgrade to get this sealed block door, rather. Now this one, I believe, is just for some Star Pearls, so it is kind of out of the way. But while you're going through this level for whatever you need anyway, you might as well, because that's probably a good 30, 40 Star Pearls on its own, so that can really boost you towards that end goal. Mind you, I say that by the time I at least went over here, I think there's only one treasure left to get in this stage period. Starfy, I have a message for you from that intruder you defeated before. Yo, Starfy, I demand a rematch, so come quickly from Bankeros. That's creepy. Starfy, will you be okay? Ah, the door. This is actually one of the only stages you do need to talk to someone outright to trigger the boss fight being available for you. So you do have to go a little out of the way for that, but oh well. Time for Bankeros's return. Also, in case you're wondering, I'm fairly certain you cannot skip this little animation of the chest showing up. You just need to wait for it to go into the boss fight of question. Looks like you found quite a bit of treasure. I found one as well. Bet you can't get it from me. Alright, so Bankeros's major changes are twofold. For one thing, in the previous fight, he never went all the way across the screen for one of his charges into the spikes. Now he can do that. But also, in the original fight, when he hits the spike walls and loses his own spikes, he would stay stuck there. Now, especially in the later hits, he'll actively try to flee from you and just try to swim around. But if you're good about being quick to the punch, you don't need to worry about that at all, really. And then you have cases like this where he just gets stuck in the wall repeatedly because his animation's trying to aim at you, but he's already partially in the wall. I think you could do this during the main fight as well. I just didn't because I was too focused on trying to actually dodge him. And there he goes. That's the end of the Stranded Whale. So now we've done the 2 stages that have 3 chests and the 1 stage to my memory that has 4. It's from here we're going into the stages over and over again. It really starts to get tedious when they have 5+ chests each. Admittedly, something else you could do to help make this entire process, like, feel a lot better than it does, is don't just blitz them, not only in individual stage order or doing all of them in a stage at a time. Take breaks and play other games, maybe between every other stage, because while it doesn't take long to get a lot of these, it just takes long enough that it's draining on top of beating the main campaign. Like, as a comparison, I've beaten the main campaign of Mario Galaxy 2 by binging it. I have never done that for the green stars, because no. For now, it's time for the Sea of Ice. This is arguably the worst level in the game for its post-game appearances. Did you get the costume from that fluffy kid? If not, you should have a word with Lovely. But if you did, perhaps Fat Kid and Kitfish know where some treasure is. Do you know where they are? Don't forget to check that door to the left of Lovely. The thing with the Sea of Ice on its post-game visits is that technically getting to any of the sealed blocks isn't that big of a problem, but because of how they're laid out in this particular stage, if you're trying to revisit every single section in order to get as many star pulls as you can throughout, you are going all over this level, combing it 5 times in a row, and that takes a while. It is worth it in terms of the star pearl counts. For instance, this little crook over here with a new enemy that you need to actually hit multiple times to take out, but acts also as a trampoline to reach these star pearls. I think there's like 75, 80 star pearls right here, and then there's like another 18 in the previous room if you float over to the right. So you can have over 100 star pearls in this particular level before you even reach the section where we were looking for the Gelato Sisters in the main campaign. Let me put it like this, and I went into my recording files to actually get the actual details of this. The main campaign recording for this stage, which was the start of the stage until I finished it, was 23 minutes or so. The first 3 stages of post-game combined were about 1 hour and 7 minutes footage combined. This stage on its own is 55 minutes with how I do it to get as many star pearls as I can. The only post-game recording that is longer than that is the one where I also did a bit of star pearl grinding in order to get as close to max as I could for the end game, which was 1 hour and I think 11 minutes on its own. Have you heard? There's a costume-wearing child around here named Fluffy. If you want to meet her, head through the door that's below here and to the left. Then in there, keep an eye out for some sealed blocks. If star pearls in this game were just for recovering your health or maybe getting extra lives if the game used a live system, I would like them a lot more than they are currently because I think the postcard isn't enough to justify their existence outside of the health recovering prospect. To come here wearing only that, you must be freezing. We're not cold, are we, Starf? Well, cold or not, you should try on a costume. See, I'm a tiger, isn't that cool? You should try one too, sure. Right, doesn't it sound fun? If it suits you, I'll let you keep it. I'll be waiting at the goal, so meet me there. The costume is our final vehicle in the game and the only one you have to wait until post-game to get, and it's absolutely adorable. You can walk and jump with it, but your main attack is a roar. The roar doesn't actually do damage, but it turns enemies that are trying to attack you, otherwise in these sequences, into platforms. You can also roar in midair. Wow, it suits you perfectly. Well done. You'll now find costumes placed all over. Feel free to use them. It's a little clunky with how it controls, considering you do move very slowly. But I at least like them because they actually are literal platforming challenges for a vehicle rather than an auto-scroller or... Actually, most of them are auto-scrollers, technically, aren't they? Like the magic set and the catfish boat are absolutely that. The mole tank sort of is because you're always moving forward so that you can control which direction you're moving. It's this and the balloon that technically aren't auto-scrollers, and that's it. So this is the shape of what the costume platforming challenges tend to be moving forward. There's an enemy that's holding on to you somehow, and you need to roar in a specific way to make them into a platform to use them to actually reach the end of the section. These range in precision from not very precise at all to one set in this very level even being absurdly precise with the jump you need to take. Something important to note though, your roar can only paralyze enemies if they are in front of you technically. If an enemy is behind you like that clam just was just then, your roar will do nothing to them. Kiting enemies around in the costume is the worst part of using that costume, I find, because your movement's just slow enough that while you can outpace them, trying to jump to lead them upwards to maybe like run beneath them to then use them as a platform from the other side is tough. But at the same time, I guess if that makes it the hardest costume to use, it makes sense because it is the only one you have to wait until post-game to unlock, so Just a little tricky with execution, it seems to be, compared to the rest of the game. Not to say that Starfy is a, like, free game, so to speak. There is enough points where you do have to execute with what the jumps are and all that. It's just that it's definitely still meant for a younger audience, so its skill peak isn't as high as, say, true arenas and Kirby games tend to get, for instance. Nowhere near that. I'd say the hardest from these games that I played thus far, from memory, is Starfy 5, because it's been a while since I last played it. I'd say maybe peaks at about... trying to compare it to Kirby in my brain. I guess maybe the final boss of Milky Way Wishes and Kirby Superstar, because you have the ways to deal with them pretty easily, and their patterns might take a moment to absorb, but at the hardest, it's not that bad kind of deal. And I think that's a good way to do a game like this, on the whole. If you pay attention as we go, by the way, since I'm redoing every bit of level design basically every time I can, unless it just takes me out of the level otherwise, I'm really ranking up some Star Pearl counts, because we're at like 300.5 almost right now, even. What's kind of interesting, though, like, comparing this first game to my memory of the 5th game, again, the equivalent to the vehicles that game has from memory is costumes, and I remember those being a lot more interactive than the vehicles here tend to be, so I think even they refined a lot of stuff throughout the games, and that's nice to see. I'm really looking forward to eventually revisiting the 5th game, and seeing how my thoughts on it have changed over the years, because I think I've booted that sometime within like the last 4, 5, 6 years, but I never really played it in depth. The last like in-depth playtime I did with that was probably like 2010, maybe 11. Either way, when I was much younger than I am now and a lot less refined with what I know I like and what I think works in platformers versus what doesn't. Also, this is more so funny to specifically me. While I did do some extra speed up to reduce the part count of this LP by 1 video and all that, one of the main things that helped with that was in the original takes of the post-game, I just did 1 level per video after a certain point. So I would have like a 15-minute video and then a 26-minute video. I just like cut 5 minutes from one and then added it to the previous part, and that slowly just ripple affected down a video. But with that, I'm gonna need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 11, we're gonna go finish our adventures here in the Sea of Ice here in postgame before moving on over to the sunken ship. Wait, no, deep sea first, then sunken ship, and then we see what we do over there. See you guys then.